I was saying.
Now we're good. All right.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Hello, hello.
It's me, Alabama Star.
And Tamisha Iman is coming for you, Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear
Raikon Topany. Yay.
I feel like we should explain Raikon Topany really quick, because if somebody who's not familiar with our vlogs watches this, they'll be like, what the fuck does that mean? But our initial reviews on this channel had been about Thai boys love, and anytime they would show a boys love episode, they would start with a warning, and the warning would be the picture that's on Mason's sweater, and they would say Raikon Topany and some more stuff in Thai, but it always started with Raikon Topany. So that's how we got that for our show, and we are desperately not trying to be offensive, but if we are, let us know. Today we're doing something very much out of our wheelhouse. Today we are doing a album review, which is not something we do at all, and it's not even really an album review. It's more like, I don't know, our thoughts on a project. I think it's better suited for what we're talking about.
Yeah, because I definitely think that there's a lot to talk about besides just like the music itself. There's the visuals, I mean the music videos of course, but even just like the album rollout and Lil Nas X himself as like a queer figure.
Right.
Talk about.
So yeah. So I think that that's probably a better way to put it. Like, we're just going to talk about our feelings about his latest project, Montero, which for those of you who don't know, Montero is actually his real first name. His name is Montero Lamar Hill. So, you know, definitely this is an album not only named after himself, but an album very much about himself as a person and the many different sides of him, both his past experiences, his present experiences, different sides of himself that he feels like he presents to the public. So yeah, it's a very introspective album, and also it's a lot of vulnerability, starting with the album cover on which we are looking at him completely nude, suspended in air. So I took a few notes before we started this because I wanted to make sure I didn't like kick myself later on like, oh, I didn't know that. So the actual album art itself is inspired by a piece of art called Genesis 2 by an artist named John Stevens. And this is the quote that he uses to describe this art, which comes from the book of Genesis. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. So this is supposed to be an example of like, or this is supposed to reflect that what you're getting is all of my work done. Like, this is my completed masterpiece. And now I'm just laid bare for you to experience this because I'm done working on it. Also, he did an interview with Zane Lowe for Apple Music. And he said that at the end of the album, there's this splash sound. And that when you look at the album art, he's kind of suspended in air. And a lot of our lives we go through kind of in between our beginnings and our endings. And that the splash sound at the end of the album is basically him falling into that water that you see in the album cover that's below him. So yeah, I think it's very interesting how this album art is about creation and creation myths and things like that, because in a lot of ways, this album is about the creation of Lil Nas X, like his experiences and the things that he's gone through in order to create this persona that we now have.
It's catching you up on the last 22 years of his life, basically.
Absolutely. And it's been a very, interesting 22 years, especially like the last 3 years of his life have been super duper interesting. So I took some notes because I'll be honest with you, I have only listened to Lil Nas X in the most shallow ways. I find his music now a lot more interesting for me personally than I did his first sound, or at least his first big hit. Yeah. Because, I mean, not for nothing, the babies were going crazy for Old Town Road. And so I just didn't really feel like it was a song meant for me as a woman in my 40s. But as his music has gone on, it has gotten more interesting. I feel like it's gotten a little bit more layered, a little bit more subversive, and I really enjoyed it. But I just did a little bit of background on kind of the music that came out before Old Town Road. So his first project that he did was a project called Nazarati, which he says that he's kind of embarrassed about now. He doesn't like anybody to listen to it. He wiped it from his SoundCloud, even though when you put something on the internet, it never truly disappears. But he's not proud of that project. Therefore, I didn't listen to it because he didn't want nobody to listen to it. And also, apparently, he uses a sample from Fiona Apple on that project, and Fiona Apple would like her money for him sampling her. So that's a thing. That's probably the reason why we're not going to get that ever. But
collab on his second album.
Yeah, we're coming up for the second thing. So then after Nazarati kind of went nowhere, he releases a song called Carry On, which I guess got a little bit of buzz. It's got a couple million, well, not a couple million, it's got over 10 million views on YouTube. And then after that was Old Town Road. And Old Town Road, until this very morning, I had never watched the music video for Old Town Road.
I, to this day, have never heard the full song.
I've heard the full song. I've heard the full song. I've heard the remix with RM from BTS. I've heard the remix with the little boy Mason. He's adorable. But I had
More
never
adorable
watched
than me.
He's a little
Yes.
kid who yodels in cowboy boots. I'm sorry, but it's just hard to compete. His little lyrics.
Damn.
I'm sorry.
I set myself up for failure with that one.
I mean, I have to admit, you look great in your pink sweater, but he's like what, 10 or 11 years old maybe, and he goes, "If you ain't got no giddy up, then giddy up my way." It's just adorable. I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, you'll find him at the nearest Walmart wherever he performed that song.
I just love him. I don't know what he's doing now, but I hope that child is being taken good care of and that life is going well for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Old Town Road comes out, and I didn't watch the video until today, literally, but I watched the video this morning and I'm like, oh, the beginning of this reminds me of this movie Stephanie made me watch. It's a movie called Concrete Cowboy, and it's about like the last of the urban cowboys that live in Philadelphia. It's an interesting movie. Idris Elba's in it, and so is the black kid from Stranger Things. And because he's the only black kid in Stranger Things, he should be easy to spot. So that happens. And then he does Panini, which again, another video I had never seen until this very morning. This one, he explained, had kind of a cyberpunk feel. And when you watch it, like the immediate first seconds of the movie felt very much like Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell. So think about like super dark city environment, advertisements projected on buildings, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there was that, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. It's a different style than the Old Town Road music is, and the lyrics kind of feel like, you know, hey, are you my real fan or not, or do you just like Old Town Country Road? That's kind of the feel that you get from the lyrics, but it's not stated explicitly. Then he does Rodeo. And the reason I'm giving you guys this background, because he talks a lot about people's reaction to him based on Old Town Road. So that's the reason why I'm bringing these things. And these are all from an EP called 7, I believe. But in Rodeo, when you first listen to the song, it sounds like Old Town Road redone. Like it has a very kind of country-esque influence. It's called Rodeo. Like it's almost like he's trying to recreate that feel, that vibe. And it is one of his least performing videos in terms of like YouTube views. Also, it has a feature from a rapper named Nas, which I'm sure you're like, okay, Lil Nas X, Big Nas, okay, that makes sense. And I find it very interesting. The video is kind of like a Blade Runner vibe, or Blade vibe. So if you've ever seen the vampire movie Blade, it's kind of like that vibe. But I find it very interesting that the remix of Panini featured DaBaby. Young Thug was on the remix of Old Town Road. Nas, who's like considered a legendary rap artist, is on Rodeo. But then after that, Holiday comes out. And Holiday, in a lot of ways, is the first explicitly queer moment in Lil Nas X's career. He says, I'm on top, but I bottom on the low. And after that moment, there are no features from Black male rappers in anything he's done since.
And he's talked about it too, plenty of times on Twitter.
Yeah. And one of the things I found interesting about that is that he did this interview. If you have a chance to watch his interview with Zane Lowe, I recommend watching the first 35 minutes of it. You could probably do all that in. But he talks about the fact that, you know, when he finally made it very clear that he was queer, that people made a big effort to encourage him to sanitize his queerness. And you have to wonder if those efforts were because the people that he'd worked with before were like, I'm a totally straight, masculine rap guy, and I can't be affiliated with a gay person who actually performs gay sex acts and actually lives the definition of the word.
Oh, you know that was DaBaby.
Oh, yeah.
For sure, DaBaby was doing that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's the list of Black male rappers that have come at Lil Nas X about his sexuality and how it's influencing the kids and all this other stuff. Like, the list is beyond. We don't have the time of day to talk about it. But he talks about that, about how, like, because Old Town Road took, I guess it caught on so much with the kids, and because his music is entertaining, that they try really hard to be like, yeah, he's gay, but that just means that he does something that no one will ever witness and he'll never talk about and it'll never actually be a part of his art. And so he kind of took it as a mission in a lot of ways to like be like, no, I'm gay. Yeah. I'm like, I'm actually gay. I'm doing gay things. Gay, you know? And it seems like after that, almost everything he's done since then has had that as an additional piece of the puzzle. Not saying that your sexuality defines who you are, but it's like, you are so against me being performative in my sexuality that I've got to stick it in your face.
Right. There was a thing that I was reading where he said that when he was getting backlash, parents were like, basically think of the children, like you need to protect the kids. And he was in a lot of his music now is basically him saying, that's not my job. You're the parent. I'm an adult. I'm going to make what I want. You know, if kids like it and watch it, that's on them.
Yeah. And like, let's be real here. When it comes to think about the kids, do you know who gets that the most? Women and queer people. People never talk to, you know, Lil Boozy or whoever and say, oh, you're rapping about having unprotected sex and getting into fights and playing with guns. Think about the kids.
And heaven forbid Megan Lestalion say, gobble me, swallow me, drip down the side of me.
Like, yeah, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, sex, think about the kids.
Yeah, it's like,
So yeah, it's women of color, it's queer identified people that are always getting to think about the kids moniker. And first of all, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I'm a parent. You're a lazy parent if think about the kids is your rallying cry, because there is a lot of shit that happens in the world that has nothing to do with the media. There's a lot of shit your kids are going to hear on the playground. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen at school that has nothing to do with whoever's on television, on Netflix, on the radio. And as a parent, if you're not talking to your kids about the reality of the world, you're a lazy fucking parent. And Lil Nas X is not the reason why your kid's out here smoking meth.
Right. And in general, like, kids deserve to have media that challenges them in the same way adults do, you know?
Absolutely.
And there was I'm going to plug this girl a couple times because she made 2 really good video essays recently, but Lola Sebastian did a video on Disney adults recently. And she made a really good point of basically like, Disney has co-opted children's media, but they're never challenging their kids. Like, they're never putting challenging themes in their work. And that's why Studio Ghibli is often a more engaging piece of media for children at times, because it really makes them think.
I could see that. I mean, I know that as a kid, this is going to sound so fucking stupid. This morning, I happened to be watching a video about Koreans react to Mr. Rogers. And Mr. Rogers for the people that are under the age of 30, you probably have no idea who the hell he is, but he was a children's show performer from like the 70s through the early 2000s. And he did a lot of very calm, very kind of like innocuous mentoring for children. So he'd come into his house, he'd take off his jacket and put on his sweater and get into his house shoes, and we would talk about what's going on in the land of fairy tales. And it was a nice time. But what was subversive about Mr. Rogers is that he would also talk to kids about, are you experiencing your parents going through a divorce? Let me tell you, if your parents are divorcing, you don't have to stop loving one or the other. You're allowed to love both, and you're allowed to feel your feelings. Or when it came with children with disabilities, he's like, let's get down to the level of these people and ask them about their experience so that we can normalize their disabilities. Or he would talk about issues of race, and he would be like, well, we have Black friends, we have white friends, and the only thing that is true is that we're all friends. And so media used to challenge children, but I can tell you kind of the turning point, if you will, of all of a sudden childhood being a priority. Ronald Reagan. All the worst things in the world have to do with Ronald Reagan, because Ronald Reagan made a pact with the devil.
Oh man, no. Oh, seriously. When I think about like me sitting in my room thinking about how we're living in late stage capitalism, just like cursing Reagan's name. There was a woman, I remember when I worked at Barnes & Noble, this is a tangent. This woman came with a tote bag that was literally just like Reagan's face blown up all over it. And
that's crazy.
It was very uncomfortable. I just wanted to tell her, that's so Reagan, you know the meme. That's so Reagan. It's the future he will destroy. That's so Reagan.
I mean, but it's true though. There's so many things that Reagan did wrong, but one of the rallying cries that Reagan employed, along with like this ultra Christian narrative that the Republican Party is the party of religion, specifically Christian religion, is anytime anything would happen that they felt was counterculture or anything that went against their fundamentalist white Christian ideals, it would be, consider the children, think about the children. When literally throughout all of time, people gave a fuck about kids. and I mean that in the nicest way possible. If you go back to old Renaissance art, people would paint over dead children. People literally gave a fuck about kids because people couldn't guarantee that their kids would live, and people lived in hard times. And so people didn't care about kids. They cared about grown-ups. Even the idea of being a teenager was invented in the 50s, literally. People gave a fuck about kids. But all of a sudden, kids became the rallying cry in the 80s in support of all the nefarious evil doing that the Reagan administration was doing. And now that is the rallying cry of the white conservatives of the world and several Black conservatives is, what about the kids? What about the kids? Fuck these kids. What about the parents? What the fuck are you doing? How are you mentoring and raising your kids?
Right. And that's why every year we have Kink at Pride discourse. It only gets worse each year.
I mean, it's true. It is true that, again, the effort is made, okay, I can accept gay, but let me sanitize you and make you kid friendly. And let's make gay be primarily about the rainbow. That's a whole other discussion.
It sucks how, I mean, no, seriously, like, I didn't know a lot about like gay sex or anything until college. That's late. I was just like, I didn't know anything about the queer community because there wasn't any media, and it was always sanitized to be just, oh, gay people are nice and happy. That's not true. We're mean. We are a mean bunch of people at times. It's crazy and very horny. Like, there was a lot to learn there that I wish I knew growing up,
Yeah, everything that exists in straight culture exists in gay culture, except for maybe the male pregnancy experience. But even that has started happening in recent years because we have trans men who are having children. But yeah, everything that exists in straight society exists in gay society. And the idea that gay people, much like how Black people were forced to think during the civil rights movement, have to sanitize themselves and be the best version of a human being in order to be treated with decent respect, that's a fallacy. And it's what we call respectability politics. And it's something that Black people have gone through many decades. And it's something that gay people are still continuing to go through. Now, tag on Black and gay, and what kind of respectability politics do you think you're being faced with?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really, really appreciate the fact that he's pushed back against these calls for him to think about the kids. Because when people are saying horrible things about being a queer man, no one's hollering, think about the queers. What about the young gay people? No one's ever making that declaration.
Right.
So yeah, I think I'm glad that he's pushing back against that. One other thing that we really have to talk about when it comes to Lil Nas X, because if we don't talk about this, we're doing a disservice to our discussion. He is a masterful internet presence.
Yes. You can tell he grew up with the internet, for sure. His marketing has been insanely good. The pregnancy thing was like chef's kiss when I saw that. I was like, oh, this could, he's doing it. He's doing it.
But where does that mastery come from? One, it comes from growing up in a time where he never had to know the world without the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, the internet came into my existence while I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't think you've ever known a time without the internet.
I mean, no. I was born in 97, and I think even since I was a kid, I was always doing like computer games and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a big part of his kind of awareness of self, and he mentions it in his Zane Lowe interview, is being a part of Stan Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is on fire right now.
Literally, there are two fandoms on the internet that I think people have the most fear and trepidation about ever addressing. It is the Barbs and the Armies.
You don't want to step on their toes.
Not at all. Not at all. And so, I mean, growing up as a Barb on Stan Twitter, he learned how to play the game. And he learned it from the best.
Yeah. He always knows how to clap back in the best way.
Oh, absolutely. And he is a brilliant, is this you?
It's right. And I think that's why his music, I think that's why his music has done well in a lot of ways, because like I have never listened to all of Old Town Road, but I followed him on Twitter because I thought he was funny. Well, he came out as gay and I was like, oh, okay. Because whenever someone comes out as gay, you're always, as a gay person, you're like, oh my God, welcome to the club. Like, good to have you. So I followed him and I was like, oh, he's really funny. Like Holiday came out and I remember being like, I don't know about this. But then in the comments, people were like, release Call Me By Your Name. Because apparently he had done like Insta Lives or like dropped teasers of it before. So then when it actually came time for Call Me By Your Name to come out, and it was amazing, it was like, I was there, but I was there because he was funny and he clapped back really well.
And he's good on every social media platform. I happen to follow him on TikTok, and he's great on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he really has mastered the internet life. And during the Zane Lowe interview, he was talking about how people were accusing him of being like a master marketer on the internet. But he was like, I hear people saying that, but that's not how I feel. I feel like this is how everyone uses the internet. And I think that is a byproduct of him growing up in the internet social media age.
Mm-hmm.
Because social media really got going at the time when your generation was ready to be a part of social media.
Mm.
You know, like MySpace had come before, obviously, and then Facebook came along too while I was in college. You were still very, very young. But like Twitter and Instagram, all that stuff has been stuff that got really popular once your generation first started kind of walking into social media. And then something like TikTok, which used to be Musically, that was the thing that your generation was doing in like junior high, high school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting how like people accuse him of, or well, not accuse him, but they label him as being like an internet marketing genius when really he's just living the internet the same way that every other TikTok, Instagram, YouTube star is doing,
Right.
because this is the medium they grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So now I've given you a good amount of background on Lil Nas X, kind of who he is, the reason why we were interested in talking about him. Now I'll tell you about kind of what made me decide that I wanted to do a full vlog about him. It was the video for That's What I Want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The night the album dropped, that video was great.
So I'll have Mason give you a synopsis of the video.
Should we go on? Should we go in album order first, or?
We can. If we go in album order, then that means we won't be talking about that particular song until we get to track 4.
We can talk about it now. We brought it up. Well, let's talk about it now real quick.
Okay. So, because I mean, it is the reason why we're doing this particular vlog.
Right. So the video, I mean, it's pretty simple. He like, Lil Nas X, like a falling star, falls onto this football field. Now he's a football player in a hot pink jersey, and honestly, it's aesthetic as fuck. And then he is like sitting in the locker rooms, and he sees this boy, and he's like, and the other one's like, and they get to fucking, and you're like, yes. It like almost became a porno. And then they cut, but they cut to a Brokeback Mountain reference where they're in the mountains, they're singing around a campfire, then they're fucking in the tent. And then Lil Nas X, you know, he's driving up to his house, he's got flowers in his hand, he's ready to like see his man again for the first time in years. But his wife and kid are at the door. So he like drives away screaming and crying. And then it's like him at the church. Billy Porter is there, the gay god, gifting him a guitar. And he is there with like the grills, the running mascara, his hair a mess, and just like in a wedding dress, like screaming, singing the song. And it's amazing. It's honestly the best part of the video is the wedding part.
And this video was the reason why I felt like talking about this project fit into what we do, because it very much is a storyline video. It very much is a BL-esque video in a lot of ways. The shower scene reminded me very much of the scene in History 3.
Friends of the pod know it's a scene we love very deeply.
Yes. I created a GIF just about that scene. It's wonderful. So that's why I felt like it really fit in talking about here, because one of the main things that I have ranted over the last year that we've been doing this is people want gay until it's gay.
Yeah.
And this is that. People claim to not mind the idea of someone being gay, but once you are actively gay, all of a sudden it's just like, no, that's too much. And so I felt like, let's just talk about the project, and let's talk about, you know, kind of the way that people kind of gloss over the realities of, you know, what it means to be a queer man in America at this time, you know. And there is one perspective that I'll obviously be missing from this conversation. I am a Black woman. Mason is a queer man. However, neither one of us is a Black queer man. So between the two of us, we'll give our different perspectives, but there'll obviously be a perspective missing. But we hope that anybody who happens to be sitting at that particular intersection will feel like we did a service to you rather than a disservice. So let's start from the very beginning of this project with Montero, which, wow, what an album opener.
It is still my favorite song on the album, for sure. And my favorite video. I think it's great. Everything about this is great.
So the video, synopsis, please.
Oh, it's so good. If you haven't seen it, where have you been, first of all? Second of all, it's, you know it. It's Lil Nas X. He's in the Garden of Eden. A snaky snake tempts him with the gayness.
Is that a meme?
Huh?
Is that a meme?
The what?
A snaky snake?
I'm just talking, man. I don't know. I don't know where I picked that up from.
Okay.
I'm sure it's from somewhere. I don't know.
I feel like I've heard that meme before, but keep going, please.
I think it's probably a TikTok somewhere. But anyway, he basically gets condemned from heaven, it seems, for being gay. So he decides, well, fuck it. I'm going to pole dance my way down to hell, lap dance on the devil, snap his neck, and become the devil. Honestly, what an icon. What a legend. You did that, girl. 10 out of 10. Like that legend status happened with that video.
Mm-hmm. And he looks amazing in this video.
So
in his interview,
good. Every outfit is good. His body is right. He just looks good.
Yes. He talked about it in his Mo video, but he considers Doja Cat to be a major inspiration. And he said watching her and her videos and her body looking so good influenced him to like really hit the gym and Pilates hard in order to look his very best and give his utmost to his music.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can tell the work has been put in because, I mean, every part of him looks perfect in that video.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found the video to not feel like it had very much to do with the lyrics, but there is one lyric that is like, as long as Eve's not in your garden. So that kind of did go back to the very beginning scene where it is kind of like a Garden of Eden, the temptation to commit sin in the Garden of Eden. And then all of a sudden that judgment for sin happening in the middle of the video. And then the logical place that sinners go, even though hell is never mentioned in the Bible. And so just saying, just want to put that out there. Technically it is not.
I never read it.
You're like, Jewish, sorry.
Haven't read that, haven't read the Torah.
You're like, I identify with communities I know nothing about. Oh, well.
Yeah. Are you invalidating my Jewish experience because I haven't read the Torah?
I'm just saying, how do you know? I mean, ethnic, fully on board with you in your confirmation. But in terms of belief systems, but I say that as a Christian who knows a lot of Christians who have never read the Bible too. So this is a universal call out.
Damn.
But anyway, the lyrics of the song are really about, or at least from my interpretation, I did not write this song, so I'm not claiming to know. The lyrics are really about wanting to be in a much deeper relationship with somebody who it seems may not have the capacity to give that to you.
Yeah, I mean, the song comes from the refrain in the movie Call Me By Your Name, where they say that. He says, call me by your name and I'll call you by might. And it's their little way of telling each other that they love each other, but in a discreet way.
Right. And there's a line that's in the song saying, you live in the dark and baby, you ain't living right.
Mm-hmm.
This person is in the closet.
Yes.
So, you know, you're saying, I want you to be on a more familiar basis with me. I want you to establish that what we have is something meaningful, even though I can tell by the way you're living, these intimate moments we share together are really the only acknowledgement we'll ever give to each other. You're not ready to do better. Like you're in the midst of drug issues because it's not just green on the table, it's cocaine on the table. So that's an issue. He's arriving to this person's house after all of his friends have left. You know, so there's just a lot going on here. And he says in the lyrics, like, I want to go to Hawaii with you. I want to do all this fun, fabulous, amazing stuff with you. But this person is not ready for that.
Right.
So I'll take the little bit of acknowledge you will give me. Call me by your name.
Call me by your name. Tell me you love me in private. Best part of the song. When he's stripping down, he goes, tell me you love me in private. I'm like, yes. So good. But I also watched Call Me By Your Name twice in the last 2 days, the movie, so it's been on my mind. Which we maybe should do an episode about it, but like, I don't know if I have the capacity to have these talks again.
Okay, so what Mason doesn't want to tell you is that last night he was completely high and decided to do like a smooth half hour about Call Me by Your Name.
I talked about Hyuna too.
Don't let him distract you. Don't let him distract you. He got very caught up in the Call Me by Your Name discussion. And it's a discussion that he's had with himself and on camera many, many times.
Because I think it's it's a great talking piece. Like, if anything, that movie gives you like hours of discussion to talk about. And I think that's a good piece of media in some ways. I think that's good.
I think that we have to acknowledge that people come at media from different perspectives, and that right now we're, as a collective, not in a place to talk about that movie positively. So even though it may be a movie that portrays a very positive experience to some people who view it, there's just so many things that the collective is not comfortable with, including just one of the main actors, full stop.
Yeah. But
that it's just, we're not in a place to have those positive conversations just yet. Yeah. And Armie Hammer, what the fuck? Sorry. Okay, let's keep going.
Anyways, it's a great song. It's an excellent video. It won the VMA for best video, I believe.
Yes.
And deserved it, you know. I'm sure that the song will get Grammy nominations, as it should.
So Lil Nas X has a video on his channel where he talks about his kind of ranking and order of his favorite videos, and Montero is his third favorite video. Which is interesting because you wouldn't have expected that. You would have expected maybe at least a number 2 placement. But he did say that like one of his favorite things to do in videos is to employ a lot of CGI. And so I think that is probably one of the reasons why he likes this video so much, is because it does have a very liberal application of CGI.
All of them did.
Yeah, well.
No, Sun Goes Down didn't as much.
Sun Goes Down
and the other one.
Yeah, Old Town Road really doesn't. Industry Baby might have a little touch of CGI, but not that much. So,
I think and then like the album visualizers were like almost all CGI.
Yes, and he says that's also because he has a real love and fascination with cyberpunk, which when we were talking earlier about the Panini video, it has a very cyberpunk aesthetic to it that is very popular in anime. And, you know, it's something that a lot of kids of his generation really grew up appreciating. So there you go. All right, next we have Dead Right Now, which has a visualizer, doesn't have an actual video. And Dead Right Now is kind of that song that I think a lot of us can relate to when we're coming to a confrontation with people in our past who want to act like we've never had traumatic entanglements. Because, I mean, he's talking about, you know, people who are professionally wanting to use him, even though when he needed their professional services, they didn't want to acknowledge him or his talents or collaborate with him. It talks about, you know, lovers and hangers on who are like, oh, we're cool together, lend me $2,000 to fix my car. And he's just like, I don't need that energy. Act like I'm dead to you, because when I needed your help, you were nowhere around. And then there is a very painful verse about his mother and the fact that she is an unreliable person in his life, and he would like her to treat him as if he's dead to her. So Lil Nas X, his father got custody of both him and his brother when he was around 9 or 10 years old. His mother, he has said in interviews, has had sustained substance abuse issues. Also, she's been with abusive partners that he has begged and pleaded for her to leave alone in life, and she just hasn't had the capacity to do so. Maybe because of a need for love and companionship, but also for, you know, the substance abuse issues. Maybe they help her to gain these things. But it is a big trauma for children to feel like their parents prioritize their own personal lives over the needs of their children while their children are still young. Because you do get to a point once you are 18 and in your 20s where if your parents decide to do something for themselves, you really have no right to call them out and say, well, what about me. I'm your eternal child. My thoughts and opinions should always go first. But when you are at a point in your life where you rely on your parents for the roof over your head, the food in your belly, the clothes on your back, your parents do have an obligation to you to make sure that your needs are taken care of before all else. And I imagine growing up with a parent, especially a mother, who you can't rely upon to meet those basic needs, much less your emotional needs. That's a really hard thing to kind of live with. And if you can't live with it, you might call for that relationship to be dead. Right. Because you're constantly having to revisit that trauma in order to try to make it better. And sometimes it's just not worth it to keep on going over that same thing and hoping it will get better. And I imagine a lot of people have that experience.
Yeah, I think that the reason this album is so popular with my generation is because it really speaks to a lot of experiences that we've had. Not that I've had, this experience with my mom, but you're right. A lot of people have had this experience. And it's great that he does kind of what he reminds me of Lady Gaga a bit in terms of his lyricism and music, because I think Gaga's really good at giving you a bop, but then when you really take a look at the lyrics, you're like, oh, this is kind of deep, Yeah. And I think that's what he's doing with at least the first half of his album, especially. The back half, they're really good songs, but they're not like upbeat bops like these are.
No, they're not. Yeah. They're not. The next song is Industry Baby, which was produced by Kanye West. Well, he was a co-producer. And in the interview, he states that Kanye West is really who added the horns to that song, which I think the horns make that song, in my opinion. And then Jack Harlow provides a straight verse because, you have to make it palatable for the straights. But Jack Harlow, I actually really dig him in terms of like his personality. Every celebrity is problematic. Don't get in these comments talking about, but what about this, that, the other? Fuck you. I know that. Everyone. Name Martin Luther King cheated on his wife relentlessly. Every celebrity and icon is problematic. I don't want to fucking hear it. Let's keep going. Anyway, Jack Harlow, I find his personality very cute because his whole MO is that whenever he's on a red carpet with any of his male friends, he insists on flirting with them. Like just hardcore flirting. There was the little snippet from Lil Nas X being on the red carpet for the MTV VMAs, and Jack Harlow gives him like the up and down, and he's like, boy, stop. Because that's just what he does. That's just what he does. But the video, I really dig it, and I will let you give the synopsis of it, and I'll tell you why I dig it.
It takes off. It picks up from like a video he put on Twitter, or like it was just basically a video where he's getting convicted for like something. I forgot what they were convicting him with in the original video. So at the top of Industry Baby, it's just the judge, played by Lil Nas X, being like, you have X amount of months in Montero state prison or whatever. So Lil Nas X is basically just in prison. You get shower scenes where they're naked. You get, him in prison, I guess. And then he breaks out with the help of Jack Harlow. And then they have a little dance party in the
yard.
The yard. I don't know. Clearly,
no, it's fine.
Apparently my words died on me coming out.
Mason's never been to prison. It's okay. So I really enjoyed this video a lot. The prelude that Mason was talking about, Lil Nas X is on trial for, I think he's on trial for the Nike shoe that he made, the Satan shoe.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But instead they convict him of being gay. And that's what lands him in prison, which, if that's not a statement on the way that convictions are handled when it comes to POCs, I don't know what else is. But then also the video itself is kind of an indictment of that system because it's called Industry Baby, but the prison industrial complex is a huge issue. And a lot of Black men get caught up in it. And a lot of times when you see portrayals of Black men in prison, it is the grimiest, most violent, horrible experience. Like being in the shower with a bunch of men and dancing, people like, oh, that shit's so gay. But gay in the context of prison, when it's normally portrayed in the media, is about violence. Gay sex when it comes to Black men is usually associated with several layers of violence. That whole don't drop the soap or you might be sexually assaulted. Like that is a common kind of insult one-off that people give to one another without really thinking about the fact that like you are saying something completely vile to somebody. Like you can look at the comments for like criminal cases, like when the news like this person was caught doing such and such. You'll see in the comments like, don't drop the soap. Ha 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 ha.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So even though the video being an industry baby, he's basically saying like the industry loves me, you're mad, but I'm making money and I've got all the hits and all this stuff. Being an industry baby in a lot of ways, that's the experience that a lot of Black men face because the preschool to prison pipeline is real. And there's a lot of things that are set as obstacles for Black people in the school system that makes them feel like they don't deserve education, to the point that when you don't have an education, you can't get certain jobs, you can't prosper in life, you can't pull your family up out of poverty, and eventually you will become somebody in that prison industrial complex. So even if it wasn't necessarily meant to have those layers, those are things that I picked up from my viewing of it, and I thought it was very interesting. Also, I was recently watching a TikTok, and I wish I remembered who did it, but it was a TikTok like, tell me something that you found out about like higher education. And one of the things was it was a Black man who had several degrees, and he was talking about how he was doing a study about why it is that people of color don't seem to get advanced degrees. And he was talking to an administration and they were saying, oh, well, we have a lot of resources for people to get advanced degrees, and those resources are internal. But when he did a survey of people of color, they said, no, I didn't know anything about these things. And so he brought it back up to the administration like, well, you say that these things are made available, but how come your students don't know about it? How come I didn't know about it? And a professor tells him, maybe it's because we don't want you. And that kind of is the thing about it. Like when it comes to the way that Black children are approached in school, I can tell you from my experience, I can tell you from my child's experience, there are a lot of things that aren't offered to children of color, even if they display certain levels of talent. There are a lot of resources that aren't made available to children of color, even when they show a proficiency. And there's a lot of little ways that children of color are targeted, especially when they are smart, to keep them from having any gains in the positive side of the system. Mm-hmm. But if they show any semblance of like isolation, aggressiveness, depression, all of a sudden they're pushed and encouraged to enter the other side of the system, which is lockup, in and out of mental health, in and out of the social welfare system. Basically, it is a way of enforcing a kind of slavery and lack of progress without saying we're trying to keep you enslaved. Mm-hmm. So even though that's not necessarily the intention of this, and definitely not the lyrics of this song, it is something that, I don't know, it just kind of like, I have whole discussions about this when I'm alone.
No, oh, for sure. I mean, he definitely did this intentionally. For anyone watching, if you want to read more about like the prison industrial complex, there's a really good book that I read in college called Carceral Capital. You should check it out. It's a really good book.
Yes. If prison wasn't a prison industrial complex, then it wouldn't be privatized. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. All right. So the next song is That's What I Want, which you already gave the synopsis of what the video is about. But absolutely, this video, more than the other videos, syncs up very well with the lyrics.
Yeah. Is this the one that was this his number one video that he made that he liked?
Yes. This was his number one, and it's about wanting more than a sexual encounter with someone. And I think that that's something that, as he gets more famous, will be harder and harder for him to accomplish.
It's very sad.
It is sad, but I mean, it is a fact too, mm-hmm. because once you become a certain level of fame, you have a really hard time gauging people's intentions. And so one could say, oh, well, why don't you date celebrities? Sure, let's do that. But when you're a celebrity and the person you're dating is a celebrity, somebody's going to want to be the number one in the relationship, and you'll constantly battle about who's going to be that number one.
It almost narratively feels like this should have been the song after Dead Right Now.
I can feel that. I can feel that. And it matches very much with Montero too. Again, wanting a deeper relationship, wanting something more. You know, in his interview, I keep going back to the Zane Lowe interview. He talks about how like he was having relationship stop, relationship stop, relationship stop. And he's like, I would like somebody who would invest the time in me to make it to where our interactions are more than just, this was fun, time to move on to the next person. But if somebody was to come at him right now after him releasing Montero and this song, and they said, oh, I'm ready to be in a deep relationship with you, would he trust that their intentions are valid and honorable?
Right. It's hard to tell, you know?
Yeah. You know, I mean, Mason would totally be that person, but again,
I was literally about to be like, hit me up, Lil Nas, and then you're like, but would he think it's valid? And I was like, I'll stick quiet. I won't offer myself up.
Out there, Lil Nas X, Mason can do for himself. He is an extremely talented person, and he does not need you for money or clout. In fact, he's super private and introverted, so definitely clout would not be the reason why he's with you. It would be for ass, but he's also willing to engage. But he's also willing to engage in like meaningful conversations about the media that you like, because he too also thinks that Call Me by Your Name is a great film.
Yeah, let's have a really long talk about why Call Me by Your Name is great and how the cinematography just makes me weep tears of joy because it's so well shot and beautiful. Please.
Right. So there you go. All right, so let's go on to The Art of Realization. It is literally a 24-second song. Well, not even a song, a 24-second skit. And basically he's like, what the fuck am I doing? Where are we going? Why are we here? Mm-hmm. Which that is literally realization in a nutshell. If anyone ever like, what does realization mean? Or self-actualization? That's what it is right there.
Yeah. And I feel like that's when the album really takes a turn too.
Yes, because in a way, if we start this album with the Lil Nas X that has become internet famous, the Lil Nas X that is dealing with kind of the pitfalls of celebrity, we're starting at a high and we're doing great. We've got all the money, all the accolades. He has literally the most RIAA certified song of all time with Old Town Road. It's 19 times certified. So, I mean, that means that like in terms of like people listening to the song, people buying the song, it is the most purchased, downloaded, listened to, streamed song in recording industry, recorded history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's 19 times platinum certified.
I would have expected that from like, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
You would think, wow. But you also have to take into account that when Mariah Carey put out that song initially, that song was not being streamed because there was no streaming.
Right.
And so there's a lot of artists throughout history that their numbers kind of have to be looked at with an asterisk because they are the pre-streaming numbers.
Right.
But yeah, that song is legendary. There's anybody expecting him to duplicate that performance, that is a fool's errand. Because right. That is a once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah, for any artist.
So once you get to a point where you have got this fame and you've examined the way you feel about this fame, now it's kind of time to go back and look at like, who am I though? Not who I am in relationship to my sales numbers and the kind of music I'm putting out, but who am I? Mm-hmm. And that's when we get to the next half of the album. Mm-hmm. So we started with what could be considered a hookup song, Scoop, featuring Doja Cat.
Mm-hmm. I love how The Art of Realization is, as you said, it's like very like, what the fuck is this? What am I doing? Like, life is kind of dumb. And then he does Scoop, which is kind of just a silly song.
Yeah. But I mean, is that not the reaction that a lot of us have? Have you ever gotten to a point where you're like, you're kind of in like a depressive, you know, I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable, a little bit kind of overwhelmed. Let me just watch a fun movie to get my head out of that.
Yeah. It's very that. Like, let me
Yeah.
sit on TikTok for a little bit.
Yeah, so now it's Scoop. And Scoop, if you look at the lyrics, kind of looks like it's a song about hooking up with an ex that you have absolutely no intention of ever getting back together with, but you are right now looking the best you've ever looked. You are more successful than you've ever been. At this point in the game, your ex would be salivating for the opportunity to be with you again. You're like, yeah, cool. I will pull up to your house. You can eat me out in the car, and then I will drop you off back home, and I will change my number because really, I just want to scoop you up, use you, and then throw you back into the ether. And the visualizer for this particular song is basically Lil Nas X and Doja Cat as like hell demon people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CGI demons, I guess.
Yes. And their CGI bodies look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would love for Doja Cat to produce a Lil Nas X song. Like, I need her to write a beat for him next. Love the feature, but let's write a beat for him,
So I want to say that for me, the second half of this album, or maybe the later half of this album, suffers from being dark. Like, honestly, even when it's kind of upbeat, it is dark. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, because there is a time and place for every single thing under the sun. But it's really hard to go from songs like Montero, Industry Baby, and That's What I Want, which feel like, in a way, they're more upbeat or have more energy to them. And then a song like Scoop feels, even though it's a hookup song, it feels very low energy.
Yeah, the album takes like a really harsh pivot, it feels like, sonically.
So, I mean, I can see a lot of people maybe waiting to see what the next single is that comes out of this, because after listening to this portion of the album and getting to the rest, I was like, I don't know what the next single could possibly be. And when you watch the video for That's What I Want, it almost implies that there is a part 2 that's going to be made. But what song would that possibly be?
I don't know. I think Scoop is viable just because Doja's a hot artist right now. People seem to really like that song. But in terms of narrative, I don't know. Maybe like Life After Salem. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is tough. And I think that's why this album is a little bit hard to listen to as a straight through, is because if I'm in like a good mood, I like the first half a lot. But the second half, I'm like, it's kind of bringing me down a little bit.
Right.
And then sometimes, but if I'm in like, but if I'm feeling a bit, maybe a little sad, or like, I just want to work through something or feel something, I would listen to the second half,
Yeah.
It'd be like if Ariana Grande combined the 5 best songs of Sweetener with 5 of the slower songs of Thank You Next. You'd be like, this album just feels like it took a turn. Like, I almost feel like there's 2 separate projects here.
Right. So, I mean, if we seem less than enthused about the latter half, I'm just going to be honest with you. On a personal front, I'm in a really low place. I'm in a really low place mentally, and I am not in a headspace to where I really can listen to a lot of super depressive stuff. And so if I don't seem as enthusiastic about the rest of this album, it's because personally, I'm not there. I'm at the give me bubbles and unicorns because I feel sad. So just saying that. Don't take it as us saying the music's not good. It's just not, we're not in a headspace to appreciate that particular vibe at this moment.
Yeah, I think I appreciate it because I think I'm entering a space where mentally, I think I did that all of last year, as I was like puppies and rainbows and I can't think about things. But I think now I've been like, no, it's time to face some things. And I think that the back half of this album does do that. Maybe not necessarily to me, but like, I think for other people, it definitely will. I mean, Sun Goes Down was a great video and great song overall. I didn't listen to it when it came out because I heard it was sad and I was like, yeah, I don't care. Sorry, Lil Nas.
I'm sad right now. This is sad. No, thank you. Okay, so next we're gonna go to One of Me, which features Elton John playing piano. That's who plays the piano on that track. And I'm glad because vocally, I don't want to hear Elton John right now. I'm sorry, that sounds very rude. There is a time and place for Elton John vocally, but the last couple projects that he's been involved with where he contributed vocally, I was like, no.
Sign from Above is great. Him and Gaga ate it up.
No. So, so One of Me. It is that song about like the voices in your head and the voices that you're hearing in your comments and your social media, kind of sowing the seeds of doubt in you.
Mm-hmm.
And the visualizer for this is kind of an animatronic Lil Nas X being created in what looks like a spaceship laboratory. And you could imagine like the lyrics being like, I'm going to build you into who I want you to be because the organic faulted version of you is not what we want. We want this thing, this created version of you. And again, if you're following kind of a through line with the songs and the lyrics, after you've had kind of an empty one night stand, as you were feeling a little sorry for yourself, as you reach this point of realization, maybe after kicking your ex out the door, you're still feeling that emptiness and you're still realizing like maybe some of that emptiness is because I'm getting all these messages about how I'm not worthy. And I picked a person to have a sexual encounter with who at one point in the past also told me I'm not worthy.
Right.
So, just piling on the sadness, piling on the self-doubt, piling on the negative thoughts. So then we move from there to Lost in the Citadel, which Lost in the Citadel has a interesting visualizer because it's the same character that Lil Nas X plays in Panini is now floating through the city to spy on a sleeping Lil Nas X that's inside of an apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and from what I read on Genius, I guess it's supposed to be about like a guardian angel relationship. I don't know. It kind of cut off when I was trying to read it. So I try not to take Genius too seriously unless they're talking about the words that the artist has actually said. But to me, looking at the lyrics, it seemed like it was about breaking up from an on again, off again relationship and acknowledging at some point we'll probably be on again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another thing that kind of goes with the through line. You have sex with your ex, an ex you tell yourself you never want to have anything to do with it. But then all of a sudden you're having all these doubts about who you are and what people want from you and everything else. So then you're like, you know what? Let's just call them up again. Let's just go through the same rigmarole, the same back and forth, and we'll probably get really involved. And then you'll say something to piss me off, and then I'll break up with you, and we'll just keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that is indicative of our entire lives. It's not just our relationships with our exes. It's not just relationships with friends that we have a hard time letting go of. It's everything. Even if you're in therapy and you make big breakthroughs with your therapy, you might still go back to unhealthy behaviors and unhealthy situations because it's really hard to change.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people give enough acknowledgement to how hard change is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
We go ahead.
like when I started therapy, I did therapy, I was in it 2 times a week. There was a point where I was in therapy 2 times a week. I am currently at once a month, but still, my therapist called me on a few weeks ago. She was like, you've been complaining about these same problems the last few times and haven't really taken any of my advice. And I was like, ooh, got me good. So it set me on a different thinking path for these last few weeks because it's hard to change certain behaviors. I fell into a pattern where I wasn't, I would go out if I had like activities or plans, but during the day, there'd be days where I never leave my apartment, because I'd just be at work and then I would stay here. And then I was complaining to her like, oh, I've been just so tired. She's like, yeah, because energy is created. You literally need to get up and go somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah. So what I've been struggling with recently is I am not a person who shows my depression outwardly most of the time. Like, I'm able to keep a brave face, a positive front for my work, for my child, for the things I have to do in life. But I'm getting back to a bad place for me. And I know I'm getting back to a bad place for me. And this morning I was able to acknowledge it because one of my worst fears was about to happen. And I lashed out about it getting ready to happen. And as soon as I did that, I realized, oh, you're in a bad place because now you're fighting this thing that if you were in a good place, you would not even be scared of. And when that happened, I was like, oh no, what are we going to do? Because I know how much it takes for me to rebound when I'm in that bad space. Like, it is emotionally and even physically, it is a massive effort I have to take to get out of my negative headspaces. And it comes with a lot of guilt. It comes with being afraid to accept help from people because you have to expose yourself in order to get that help.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've exposed yourself, not only are you acknowledging that the problem is real, but now you have to see how bad things have gotten. And a lot of times when you're feeling bad, you're not ready to see how bad it has gotten.
Yeah, but I think that's why people stay and really get caught up in depressive episodes, is because you come to realize like, oh, things are just piling up now and I can't bear to look because I know if I look, I'm just going to feel worse. But you have to feel worse to get better. And that's the sucky part. But you're strong. I am sure. I mean, we can definitely talk off camera.
Well,
But
I
I hope you are able to find someone, anyone, something to reach out for that help, because you deserve the help. And I think if you need it, you should ask for it, because I think you have people in your life that are willing to give it to you,
Yeah.
Like a lot of the work, I think, I was talking about this on Twitter because it was reminding me of Call Me By Your Name. Again, we're calling back to Call Me By Your Name because it's been on my mind. But I think this is like, I think some people who are in a very fragile mental state might not love this statement, but at some point the work is on you and you need to take the help of people around you so they can help take some of the things off of it and you can work on you.
Yes. What I'm dealing with right now, I could absolutely ask for help, but I'm ashamed to ask for help, so I haven't yet. But I read something that really made me feel good about trying to tackle it. And it said, you can't wait for motivation in order to start the work. You just have to start the work.
Yes, it's like when people who really want to lose weight say, I'm going to go on a diet, but I'll start tomorrow. No, if you really want to lose weight and you want to go on that diet, you need to start now, not tomorrow, not this is my last cheat day, because you'll just keep pushing it back. You have to start now, kind of a thing.
Right. So I'm on my way up, but I'm at the bottom, I think, right now. I may still be at the bottom for a few more days, but I'm on my way up.
I took half of Thursday and Friday and all of Friday off because I had a panic attack Thursday morning and I was just like, yeah, this is it. I need to work on me for the next few days. I can't be sitting here trying to draw make it happen. It's not gonna happen,
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So, yeah, my work situation, I'll tell you about that later, but that is definitely working on this anxiety we have. Okay, so next we have $sign Slime featuring Meg Lestalion. I wish the song was better.
I was about to say the same thing. I think this song is okay. The best part of the song is Megan.
Yes.
Like when she comes in, it feels like this album got like a breath of fresh air and I had like the momentum. It gave it momentum. I feel like this album, the last few songs kind of sounded the same. they had the same vibe. They were just kind of like, I don't know, they weren't hitting me very well. And I feel like this, it's called, what is it called again? Dallas
Dollar
Sign?
sign, which
I
what
feel
does
like
that mean?
I feel like this should be a very fun song, and it just isn't until you get to Megan's verse. Then I'm like, okay, now I'm having a good time. I'm having a good time now.
Yes. And I don't know if maybe this is because Lil Nas X is trying to reflect her energy or the energy she's given to projects previously, and that's the reason why it sounds like this. But it sounds like a flex track, but your heart is not in the flex. Like
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I got this, that, and the other. It's so great. I'm doing so well. Oh, look at all these golds in my mouth. Look at the rings on my finger. Look at my beautiful car. Look at all the money. It's so great. Yeah, it's so great. Meanwhile, Meg is like, you damn right. Look at this ass. Look at this body. I'm feeding you all kinds of goodness that you bitches have to pay for. And Lil Nas X like, yeah, girl, we're winning.
It reminds me of Detox's verse in Read You Wrote You, where she's like, you can't stand me. I don't blame you. like instead of hyping herself up, it's very like, Rue's number one, I'm number two. It's like, why are you number two in your own hype rap song? Like, come on, Detox. It's very strange.
So, I mean, I understand. Sometimes it's fake it till you make it. But you've made it and you're still faking it. So maybe get with Meg again, but get with Meg again when you can really feel it.
In fact, I would have loved it if he gave Megan a song where it was a bit more soulful, because a lot of her
She
stuff.
did the feature on Industry Baby.
Yeah. But you love Jack Harlow.
I like him in terms of like when I see him in public, he's cheeky. But if we're being real, the song that fits her energy the best is Industry Baby.
She is missing out on these features. Dua Lipa, I don't know if it was her or her company.
No, it was a YouTuber. It was a fucking YouTuber who took her verse from another song and put it on top of the Dua Lipa song and said, this should have been the feature.
Yes, and we were all like, yes, this is objectively way better than DaBaby's verse.
Yes, and it's so frustrating because I feel like when people are looking for Meg to feature on stuff, it's because they have a preconceived notion of who Meg is and what she'll bring to the track for like the remix, instead of trying to push Meg into their world. And she's capable of doing that. She's a person that has many multiplicities about herself. She can be all kinds of things. Somebody needs to get with her and meet her in a place she's never been before, instead of being like, oh, I think that she would work on this track because we're talking about asses right now, or we're being hypersexual right now. Dua Lipa, that song isn't necessarily a hypersexual track, but DaBaby doesn't necessarily add anything to that track with his verses. They're not fantastic, but I could see Meg doing a song and adding a verse about how she just wants to dance. I just want to get out on a Friday night and shake my ass and have fun and not think about these guys and all this other stuff. But people have so pigeonholed her that's when she gets invited to do a song like Dollar Sign because like, oh, I'm doing a flex track and you like to flex on your haters, so let's get together.
But I wonder, I mean, how much of that is the music she releases though? Because a lot of her singles are of that vein,
I think that a lot of it is because I think she is going through the exact same thing that Lil Nas X had gone through, where it's like people loved Old Town Road, here's Rodeo,
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it takes, much like therapy, somebody seeing the place you're in and trying to guide you into another place.
Yeah.
And also, like, let's be very real. Megan I personally don't know how I would live if I lived Megan Thee Stallion's life. She has lost her grandmother. She has lost her mother. I think her dad is either gone or he's locked up, one of the two. She has very little familial support, and she's had conflicts with her friends because she had the one friend that was with her the day that Tory Lanez shot her, and that friend is no longer friends with Meg. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? So I think that these kinds of songs where she's saying these kinds of things are something that she knows. It's a kind of persona that she built up while her mother was alive, because her mother was kind of like her rap mentor when she was alive. And so I think she's just not ready to be made uncomfortable. But eventually she will have to start being able to do the work to be uncomfortable, because sometimes that's how we grow, is by making ourselves a little uncomfortable.
That's the only way to grow. And I think that's why, again, like we're circling back to like media that challenges people and media that challenges kids, that's how you grow. Only consuming media that's the happy rainbows and butterflies, you know, that's nice, but it's not gonna end up helping you in the long run. It doesn't solve anything.
That's why it's called growing pains.
Growing pains. And that's why you watch your favorite movie that makes you cry. I'll just watch Lady Bird. And she asks her mom, "Do you like me?" And her mom goes, "Of course I love you." And she goes, "Yeah, but do you like me?" And then I sob for 3 hours.
Your mom likes you. She just doesn't maybe like you in the way that you want her to like you. Maybe the things that she likes about you aren't the things that you feel should be valued about yourself.
Yeah, and that's what Lady Bird's all about as a movie. And that's why it's so good and so poignant to me as a white suburban person.
So I'll tell you, as a parent, there are things I like about my daughter tremendously and things that I don't like about my daughter. And I would say almost every single thing I don't like about my daughter are things I don't like about myself. The things that people would say, oh, that should be considered the negative because it's so different from you. I
Mhm.
don't look at those as negatives, because I'm like, it's just different.
Mhm.
But things that I've struggled with tremendously and I see her struggling with, I don't like those things, because I don't like those things. I don't like them about me. I don't like them about her. I don't like them about other people. And I have to work very hard to pull it back and be like, you're throwing this on her. You are reflecting right now. You're not actually seeing her as herself. Get out your head. Get away from that thinking. She is she, you are you.
Mhm.
But I think that happens a lot with parents. It's very easy to love the things about our kids that we love about ourselves. It's very easy to
Mhm.
hate the things about our kids that we hate about ourselves. And
Right.
our kids don't always understand it, because honestly, kids don't really know a lot about their parents. Like, you know your parents in the context of them as your parents, but in terms of us as individuals and our own selves, kids really and truly don't really know a lot about the inner workings of our parents in their minds.
Mhm.
And so I think that a lot of times a lack of love maybe isn't a lack of love. I mean, sometimes it is. Very, very many times it can be that. But sometimes it's just like, this, what you're reflecting to me or what I'm seeing in you right now is painful in the self-reflective gaze. So I can't look at you. And then your kid is like, why won't you look at me?
Mhm.
And then everyone's hurt.
Yeah. Hooray for generational traumas.
So this episode is called therapy.
Apparently we decided, wow, 10 a.m. What if we just talked about our feelings?
We do.
I don't
All
remember
right.
what song we're on. Are we on Lost in the Citadel now?
We are now on Tales of Dominica, because we just
Oh,
did Dog Sign Slime.
you're right.
So Tales of Dominica is where we start to really delve into the past. And
Mhm.
this is kind of, it sounds like this is that place that he was in, kind of in college after leaving home from high school, where things aren't working out. Like, he's on an inflatable mattress that no longer inflates. Things just, they're not happening. But he knows, I can't go home because home no longer exists for me, which is kind of the reverse of Dead right now.
Mhm.
So in Dead right now, he's telling other people, just act like I'm dead to you. But in Tales of Dominica, he's like, I know I'm dead to that person. And specifically his mother.
Mhm.
He can't go back home to her,
Right.
which I hate that. I hate that.
It's very sad. I wish him nothing but happiness and health, and hope that he has a support system around him.
Whatever happens with his mom, I hope he finds peace with that.
Yes.
Because you can only change you. You cannot, no matter how much money you have, no matter how good your intentions are, you cannot change other people. And it's not a child's job to change their parent.
Mm-hmm.
So find peace in your relationships with other people, but don't believe for a second that you are at any place capable of changing them. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know, if you say that though, that it makes you think like, is therapy even worth it because you can't change anybody? But therapy is not about changing people. It's just about basically examining who they are and then maybe providing them with feedback on who they are. But it isn't about changing.
Well, it's about changing yourself, I think.
But that's you changing yourself. It's
Right.
not your therapist changing you.
Right. Because at the end of the day, it's on you.
Yeah. All right. Next we have Sun Goes Down, which can you give us a synopsis of the video, please?
Yeah, the video's great. He's, it's basically like older Lil Nas X working as a guardian angel for younger him when he's in high school, working at Taco Bell and dreaming of a bigger life, essentially.
Right.
On his way.
The lyrics are kind of dark, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this back half of the album is like super intense.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the rundown from like, you wonder why it is he can't go home. Well, in Sun Goes Down, he talks about like, I've always felt like an outsider. You know, as a kid, my friends weren't really my friends. I was concerned about, my blackness and the features of my blackness and how it was not a positive. And then, he talks about like, I only really felt myself on Stan Twitter, standing for Nicki Minaj. And then it kind of goes, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would rather someone go and be on Stan Twitter than like joining a cult or being an incel. Like if you need a home, you're looking for a home, don't join a cult. Don't be an incel. Join Stan Twitter instead. Find a pop girl to love.
Absolutely. And then he talks about suicidal ideation, about how, just being when you're lonely and you're in pain and you're feeling judgment, how sometimes it seems like it would be easier just to not experience anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me look up a quote. I have a quote for that, but I forgot it verbatim. So hang on, you keep going.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I think that might be one of the things that a lot of people, when they critique the performance of Suicide Trigger Warning, they look at it as, oh, you are lazy, or oh, you just gave up. And I don't think that they look at what could be the circumstances that would lead somebody to get to that point in life. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not somebody had one bad day and chose to make a decision like that. Like there are people that suffer from accidental suicides, absolutely, but there are people who it's done very purposefully and it's something they've been thinking about for a really long time because they have been accumulating pain.
Mm-hmm. This is a quote. I can see this movie, that I can see why Lil Nas X listening to this album really connected with Calling by Your Name as a movie. So I had to bring it up again, but there's a quote at the end where after Oliver and Elio split because Oliver has to go back home to America, Elio's very sad. He had a very deep connection with this person, and his dad basically gives this whole monologue. In the middle of it, he says, "But to feel nothing, so as not to feel anything, what a waste."
Yeah. What's happiness if you don't know what sadness is?
Right.
You can go throughout your life not ever experiencing negativity, but if you've never done that, then what have you really experienced?
Right.
So your life has to have a certain amount of texture to it.
Yes, there's a balance there.
Yeah, but
you feel nothing, so as not to feel anything. It's just sad.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes people's reasons for what they do vary, but I mean, there is a certain kind of depression where you feel nothing. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just nothing. And even the feeling of nothing can get exhausting. So, you know, in my heart, I hold a lot of forgiveness for people who make that decision, but I really wish that people wouldn't. I wish they would find ways to live, because I always hope that there's something better around the corner. Even in my own life, I always hope there's something better around the corner. But I also understand that your life is your life, and you're going to make the decisions for your life based on the experience you're having. But if you want to experience something different, holler at us, because we highly encourage you to hang in there to get the opportunity to experience something different.
For sure.
All right, next song we have on the list is Void, which lyrically feels like it's a lot of letters to people, mostly letters to self. But there's one particular part that sounds like it's kind of talking to a former lover.
Right.
Yeah, and the Void visualizer is just him sitting on a couch watching television, and then it going back out and zooming in on the room that he's watching the television, and it's a clip of him as a younger person. So it's very much, you know, I'm looking at my younger self and thinking of all the things that I wish that person knew. But also, he does allude to the fact that when he was younger, he was involved in a relationship with a person who was very deeply in the closet. And I wonder a little bit if maybe this person that he was in a relationship with might have been an older person, and that being another reason why the whole call me by your name dynamic feels very close to home and very personal.
Maybe. I read that he liked that specifically because he liked the idea of them having a coded way to tell them that they love each other.
Right. So, I mean, not everything has to sync up, but definitely, you know, somebody who is not ready to be completely in it with you. I'm sure that there's things that when you get out of that relationship, you want to say. Like, how many of us don't have regrets about the things we never said?
Would love to meet that person.
Yeah, I mean, because you're obviously living the best life ever. I have regrets all the time. Shit, I have regrets about the drive-through window. I'm like, damn it, I should have gotten the cheesy tots.
You're like, I've been up for an hour and I've acquired 7 new regrets.
Absolutely. I have regrets that I have forgotten that I regretted.
I regret not getting breakfast before this.
Which you do every time.
Yeah, that's true. Every time I do this, I never eat breakfast before, and then it's 1 p.m. and I'm like, I haven't eaten it all today.
It's so funny. Yeah. But Void, you know, even though these are letters to the past self, letters to past lovers or whatever, you're speaking into the void, because it's not like by saying these things, you can change anything that happened.
Right.
So really and truly, it's an exercise for the present you, because sometimes you do have to talk to the past you to tell yourself how far you've come and how well you've done and how you're not that person anymore.
Right.
And that's where we get to Don't Want It.
Where he's fighting like a demon.
Yeah. And so this
individualizer.
Yeah, the individualizer is this demon and this dog, and they're kind of in a face-off. And yeah, the demon, the specter of depression and all of that is there. But he starts going back with, but look what I'm doing. Look what I've done. Look what I'm continuing to do. I'm not that person anymore. You could have taken me. If I was me from 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could take me. I would easily give up, but I'm not that person anymore. And also, anybody else who believes that I could be manipulated or taken advantage of based on the person I used to be, that person is no longer here anymore. Going back to dead to you, like that person is dead. And I think for all of us, as we go through our different phases in life, we're constantly killing off the old self.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, because if the old self lives, every trauma and every insecurity and every negative thing associated with the old self, it continues to live. Now, granted, you'll never erase your life from trauma. You'll never erase yourself from your negative experiences. So killing the old self doesn't mean that you don't carry that history with you. But the mind frame that you had at those different moments in time, those aren't necessarily mind frames that you need to carry with you into the future, because those mindsets weren't serving you well in that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's constant reinvention, and it's reinvention in so many different ways. One of the things that makes me really angry about people my age is that a lot of people have been waiting their whole lives to get to their 40s. I know that sounds stupid, but it's because 40s is usually the beginning of your I am now seasoned and wise and in a position to give advice to people ages.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to learn anything else or elevate their thinking or maybe change their minds about stuff. They get to a point where they're like, I'm ready to be set in my ways. But what the hell does that serve? What does being set in your ways serve to anybody, even yourself?
It is a negative to my generation that Gen X and boomers are so set in their ways.
Honestly.
Because like I think about that, and I think about like when people in like 40s, 50s, 60s tell me like, go vote, go vote, go vote. That's how you're going to change things. And then I do vote and they go, oh, you voted for the wrong person. You're not supposed to vote for Bernie. You're supposed to vote for Biden. You know, and it's always listen to us. We know what's right. And it's like, clearly not all of you do, because clearly shit's on fire and your methods have not worked for the last 30 years. So maybe you should try something new.
So I have a real beef with it when it comes to voting systems. I know this is like off the point, but that's what all of our conversations are.
Mm-hmm.
I am not party affiliated. I'm considered an independent in the state that I'm registered to vote in. I did that for a very specific reason. If you type in my name and you manage to get like my city and my age, these new, like my life and that kind of stuff, they will print your registered party affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why that's a negative is because I need to work for a living. And not everybody has the same political affiliation as me. And I don't want people to search up my name and guess, oh, she believes in this, she believes in that, therefore I don't want to employ her. In fact, I try not to have very many pictures on the internet, even though I have like an entire YouTube channel, but that's a separate thing. But I try not to have many pictures of myself on the internet for that very reason as well, because I don't want to have anyone to have a preconceived notion of myself. But this is where it bites me in the ass. I would probably vote for somebody like Bernie in the preliminaries, what do you call it, the nominations, I think. Yeah, but I'm not a registered Democrat, so I can't. I literally can't. I have to go with whatever fucking nominees happen to be on the ballot at the time. I could write in somebody, but I can't vote for them in the preliminary races.
Mm-hmm.
And because of me not being able to vote in the primaries, I don't get a chance to really see myself reflected. And I think that that's not ever considered when people are thinking about who's out there voting. There's a lot of us who don't register with any party because we're trying to feed ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot with voting. There's a lot of voter suppression. There's a lot of gerrymandering. Like,
yeah.
But like voting is just not quite the answer, you know?
Texas, they've made it to where there's like one voting station per district, or county, I guess, voting district. The problem with that is if all the people can only vote in person in that one spot, if I'm working for a living, especially if I'm working hourly,
right? How are you
can I
gonna
take off work all day to wait in line to be able to vote? So in many ways, you've kept me from my vote, because now I have to choose between paying my bill or speaking my voice.
Right.
So
that's how they keep beating us down. Fucking hate this. And that's why my generation feels so helpless, because it's like, it's just, How
You
can
can't win.
stop that? How do you stop that, you know?
You don't want to be cynical, because if you're cynical, then you're moved to inaction, and inaction doesn't solve anything. But
That
it is very hard to see what the next step is.
it's hard not to have like a doomer spiral.
Mhm. And then that's when you end up looking at bubbles and unicorns and fluffy things,
Yeah.
because it's just,
Like, what if I watched The Little Mermaid for the 300th time?
yeah. All right. Next, we are at number 14, which is Life After Salem.
I liked this song. I don't remember much about it, but I remember really enjoying it. I feel like we
I
haven't talked about if we've liked any of these in a bit.
I think the only one we ever said like blatantly that we didn't like was the song with Megan. And it wasn't even that we didn't like the song, we just felt like the song felt like it didn't have compatible energies. Yeah.
Uh,
So Life After Salem, toxic relationships. Don't we hate them? We keep getting into them though.
you know, that's what happens.
It is. And you know what? It just is what it is. We go through our cycles, we think we're done, and then we end up back in our cycles again. But hopefully, with each successive cycle, we change at least one thing,
Mm-hmm.
because something's got to change. We can't keep doing this.
Right.
Okay. Now let's go to Am I Dreaming featuring Miley Cyrus. It is the last track of the album.
I enjoy this song. Sorry, Lil Nas X. Miley outshined you on this track. Like
I'm fine with that.
I thought he sounded good. Then when Miley came on, I was like, oh, she's doing it for me.
Okay, so recently Miley Cyrus has been trending on TikTok with "What Does It Mean?" And I
What does it mean?
listen, when I say that we all have our moments in life,
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus's Dead Pets was a moment in her life.
She, she's looking back at that like, let's not talk about it.
It's like, I did that. I sure did do that. Let's keep going.
She really followed up her best era musically with her worst. And it's like, I don't know how you got here, but we're here. But we have plastic hearts now and things are good. Things are good. She's back. She's back to where she belongs.
I think about that all the time. Like, she had the whole bangers era, and then she like decided to get butt naked and start screeching and putting fake ejaculate on her face. And it was just like, I don't even know how to talk about this.
Me either. But I also think Miley Cyrus is very smart with her music. I just think that she makes smart in her music, and I think that she does put a lot of thought behind it. Maybe not good thought, but I think there's like intent there, and I appreciate that. Like I can't wait for Miley Cyrus to be like 50 and she's like, she does this long interview about her career and we get to the Dead Pets and I want to hear her thoughts and about why she went there and went that direction.
I'm just gonna assume drugs. Like, if I had to,
for sure.
yeah.
Like, oh, Malibu, which I don't like that album at all. Sorry. It was bad.
Oh, that was her like Getting Back with My Boyfriend album, and no one likes that.
But then she released Mother's Daughter, and I was like, oh, we're cool. This is a good one. You can keep this.
And was she getting ready to break up at that time, or was she already broken up?
Probably broken up, because Don't Fuck With My Freedom. I Just Came Up to Get Me Some. I'm Nasty, I'm Evil. Yeah, that sounds like a breakup. That is not.
Yeah, so apparently Miley Cyrus is a lot like Mary J. Blige. If they're happy, the music suffers.
Or Adele.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, you're back with your man? Stop. We're never going to get an album.
We're never getting Adele 3.
Listen. Oh my
Beyonce
gosh.
7.
Okay, so Adele's in her hoe phase, which I totally support, and I would like to have an album of Adele in her hoe phase. But she's so fucking happy right now in her hoe phase that we're getting nothing from her but looks. And girl, you're beautiful, but I didn't sign up for the beauty of Adele. I signed up for the music, sis. Back when you were, heavier and they had you dressed like somebody's grandma, I still liked you then. But now you're hot and you don't want to sing.
Even though those albums were named after her age, I literally thought she was in her 30s.
Man, listen. Okay, another side tangent. Why is it that people have such a hard time styling bigger bodies in a youthful way? It's like they either want you to look super childish if you're a bigger girl, or they want you to look like somebody's grandma. And there's never any in between. And I just would like somebody to start styling bigger women in a way that accurately portrays where they are in life, rather than being like, this is a style that looks good for that body type.
I feel like Lizzo's stylist does a good job. I like Lizzo is usually in really fresh outfits. Her clothes are always right. I always like what Lizzo has to wear.
I feel like Lizzo wears a lot of custom pieces.
That's true. Because it's hard.
She looks like she has been getting younger over the years. Because isn't Lizzo in her 30s?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah. I feel like she looks younger now than she did when she started.
Yeah. But it's like, it's hard to buy clothes for bigger people, Right.
And I think that's the reason why she customizes so much of her stuff. But yeah, Adele, 19, I would have never guessed. You looked a very hard 19. You looked a very road hard, put away wet. And then and then she was 21. And again, I'm just like, okay, how many lifetimes have you been through? Who hurt you?
She does sound like she's been through 7 divorces by the time she was 21.
Yeah, and then by the time Hello came out, and she's like, I'm reflecting on past relationships and seeing where I could have done a better job of acknowledging that we're both going through separate but simultaneous problems and traumas. I'm like, I did not sign up for this. I liked it when you said fire to the rain. I liked when you said, never mind, I'll find someone like you. The best song on that whole album is the song she did that Bruno Mars wrote with her. Other than that, that album is a wash. It's all about forgiveness and getting over bad relationships and trying to still be friends. Fuck all that noise.
I don't know. I really love Send My Love to Your New Lover. That's a great one. Send my love to
Revenge.
Your lover. Treat you better. What a great song. You don't like that song?
Gotta let go. I'm not letting go of shit. In fact, I feel like Adele's man at the time was like, oh, you gotta forgive and you gotta move on. You can't let that hurt mess with you. You're better than that. And it's just keeping you in a shame spiral. Did all this stuff to fuck with her head just so he could get her in a vulnerable place so he could fuck around on her and take her money.
You're like, I'm gonna stay bitter till I'm dead.
Yes, absolutely. There's no fucking way I would have married that Simon Kaniki guy without an extreme prenup. My prenup would have been, if you breathe at me wrong, I'm leaving you with nothing. If you don't brush your teeth every morning, I'm leaving you with nothing.
And then we never got an album. Like, girl, don't you want some of that money back?
Right? He got over $100 million from her. That's money that people will never see in their lifetimes. Generations of people will never see in their lifetimes. And he acknowledges that he fucked around on her and managed to walk away with cash. No, I would kill you first. If I was Adele, I'd have spent $100 million making a seamless murder come true.
Yeah, I would have written a spite album.
Yeah. So
all the dirty laundry.
Everything. I mean, she's obviously a better person than me because she's like, that is the father of my child. I will not take it there. But I'm totally different. And I need therapy because I'm not in a forgiveness cycle yet.
It's a very, I do agree that I think it's weird how so many people are like, oh, we should just forgive and forget and understand people, especially conservatives. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay mad. You go low, I go lower. Like, you want to play petty? Fine. It takes no energy for me to be mean. People always say that. They're like, it takes more energy to be mean than just to be nice. I'm like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It takes the same amount of energy for me to be mean as it does to be nice. We can go toe to toe. Let's see.
Have you watched the new Tara Mooney video about virtue signaling versus vice signaling?
No, but I should.
Okay. So there is a segment in there about how conservatives have used virtue signaling and it's a part about like how their opinion is like, it's fact versus feelings, and that facts have no feelings.
Yeah.
And there was another video I was watching with somebody else, and they were talking about how like the idea that cold logic is maturity is actually immature, because those are that's literally the stages that you go through going up. Like, so there's a channel called Cinema Therapy, and they did a cinema therapy about The Incredibles and about like children's different stages of maturity, and how like when you're a baby, your thought is that you are one with your parents. Like everything that you experience, your parents experience it too, because you guys are the same person. Then as you start to separate yourself from your parents, you start to draw hard boundaries, and your life is very black and white. So when people try to come at you with like complex situations, you're like, okay, but like, can you minimize that and just give me like the facts, and then let me just make a judgment based on facts and not nuance. And it's as you get older, you're capable of acknowledging nuance and making decisions based on not just maybe the problem facing you and what the upfront question is, but also the nuances of every issue underneath what you're being asked to make a decision on. And conservatives are stuck in the black and white. They are stuck in the no nuance. And sometimes liberals can be too. I'm not even going to act like that's not true, because everyone's fallible. But it's just this whole idea that, well, this is this and that is that. There's no in between. You either are, you aren't, whatever else. That's so stupid, because everything has an asterisk. Everything has a what if. Everything has a but what about. That exists for every single situation under the sun. And I think it's super immature to believe that your experience in life allows you to be able to make determinations based on your black and white mode of thinking when you haven't experienced every kind of life. You've only experienced your own.
Right.
You know, even the idea that conservative people a lot of times will judge person's behavior based on what the Bible says. But if I don't believe in the Bible, I do. But if I didn't, why would I have to go by those guidelines? It makes no sense. It's a logical fallacy at that point. So why are we continuing on this road?
And I feel like conservatives don't even believe in like good logic, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Like I feel like they're wrong, like factually incorrect. Like if you watch Fox News, it's like factually incorrect. There are factually incorrect statements about the vaccine.
Are they only acknowledge convenient facts?
Yes.
And, you know, when you are mature, you're able to acknowledge that there are many different forms of fact. Like a fact in and of itself can be situational. Like I can say, it is a fact that I am a Black woman. You can't say the same thing because your life experience is not that. Your background is not that. I'm stating a fact. And me stating that fact is a fact for me. But if you had to say who you are, your fact and my fact won't be the same.
Right. Like I can say Black Mamba is my favorite SM debut song, and you would say that's slanderous, Shiny deserves more. And like, we'd both.
Yeah, I chose not to respond to what was obviously you trying to start a fight. I said, we've got a film tomorrow. I'm not going to start a fight with you, but you and I both know that that is loud and wrong.
It's not wrong. It's a fact for me. It's my personal favorite, and you can't take that away.
So even though that's Mason's fact, that is still an opinion.
Yep.
But it's his personal fact. And so if he goes into a conversation with me talking about, I'm going to think that Black Mamba is the most perfect SM debut because I know it is a fact, already, this is an illogical conversation we're having.
And I think that's why it's hard to talk to people about media a lot of the time for me, is because they can't separate their opinion of, I love this, to, but is it good? And it's sometimes I have a hard time too. You know?
Yeah, even saying, is it good? It's like, good based on what? Because good is subjective.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Let's go back to I'm Dreaming. The last song on the album, we were talking about Miley Cyrus, got lost in the sauce. This song very much sounds like the ending to Titanic. It is like How Will I Be Remembered, Final Thoughts Before Sinking, that kind of a thing. And we were talking about how like the album ends in a splash sound. But one of the things I thought was cool about his interview with Zane Lowe is that he said, like, as a gay artist, your legacy gets minimized because it becomes about your gayness rather than your art. Mm-hmm. And that is such a fucking fact. And I never really thought about it until I started thinking about George Michael. For those of you who are younger than me, you were probably not alive during George Michael's heyday. But when George Michael was popular, he was popular. He was in the same kinds of conversations as a Madonna and a Prince and so on and so forth. He did a song with Aretha Franklin. He did a song with Mary J. Blige. Like he was that guy. And when it came out that he was gay, all of a sudden, George Michael became a has-been, almost literally overnight. And even now, when people think about him, he is that Christmas guy, or he is, oh, did you know George Michael was gay? And it sucks because of any of the artists from the 80s, in my opinion, George Michael and Whitney Houston probably have the strongest career catalogs, like songs that still work today. And people have acknowledged Whitney for that. But Whitney's final legacy is not being a drug addict. Even though she died of a drug overdose, just like George Michael did, that's not her final legacy. But George Michael's final legacy is being gay. It's not Last Christmas. It's not Wham. It's not the fucking saxophone from Never Gonna Dance Again, Careless Whisper. And it infuriates me. It infuriates me because I love George Michael. Like I stan George Michael. And
you'll have to send me his songs. I've never heard of him. I don't know who this man is, but that's very sad.
We literally talked about, I know you've heard Last Christmas. It plays in every mall, Last Christmas. I gave you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's George Michael.
Okay.
That's why when you said I've never heard of him, I'm like, what? It's just like Mariah Carey. Those are the Christmas songs.
But there's a lot of songs that you hear that I'm like, yeah, I've heard the song, but I don't know who's singing it.
Not a problem. I will send you some George Michael. But yeah, George Michael was my fave. I feel like I grew up with George Michael. I was heartbroken when he died. I was heartbroken by the way that he died. I was heartbroken with the way that people responded to him when he came out. Everything about George Michael for me has been heartbreaking because I really and truly loved George Michael. And I was not, when Michael Jackson died, I was shocked. When Prince died, I was shocked. When Whitney died, I was shocked, but also sad because I felt like that was the way things were headed. But when George Michael died, not only was I shocked and sad, but I was fairly heartbroken because I felt like he was somebody that after it came out that he was gay, everyone just kind of forgot about him. And he didn't deserve that. Because he's a very, very talented artist. Also, before he came out as gay, he did 2 of the most gay music videos of all time. And I feel like more people need to acknowledge that. When you watch the video for Wake Me Up Before You Go, it is him.
That was him?
Yes.
Okay. I know that song.
Yeah. They're dancing in like little shorts and just being super gay, like very Fire Island. And then you have the video for Freedom, which he's not even in, but it's just like a bunch of supermodels being beautiful and lip syncing to his music.
It's pretty gay.
Right. So yeah, I hate that people don't consider him. When people talk about the big stars of the 80s, people forget to mention his name, and he literally was one of the biggest stars of the 80s. So, all right. So overall, our thoughts on the project. Mason, I will let you go first.
I think it is a fantastic look into who Lil Nas X is as a person and an artist. It makes me extremely interested to see where his career is going to go from here. I think Montero, especially the top half of the album, really has the songs that right now I'm bumping to. That's What I Want, Industry Baby, and Montero are all great songs. I think it's not my favorite album. It's a 7 out of a 10 album for me. I feel bad giving it that low of a score, but I do think the back half does blend a bit too much together. But overall, it's very solid. I think he's 22 when he did this, and I think that's super amazing. And I think he has a very, very long career ahead of him.
Yeah. I agree with your ranking in terms of 7 out of 10. I agree with your sentiments about being interested in him as an artist. This album is called Montero, and that is his real name, not his artist moniker. On the cover of the album, he is naked, and he is giving you some very vulnerable insights throughout the album as to who he is, where he came from, what he's been dealing with. And I appreciate that because, as we all know, your vulnerabilities can be weaponized. And especially like just even him being out and being clearly queerly out has been something people have tried to weaponize against him. So I find the entire project to be incredibly brave because he could have walked back his queerness, because honestly, there's a lyric in one of the songs that he's like, am I G or B? So is he gay or is he bi? You know, like even his own sexuality, it's something he's working through and is not been, you know, decisive about, yeah, this is absolutely who I am. So with that being said, I'm really glad to get a peek into who Montero Lamar Hill is. I'm excited to see what Lil Nas X does moving forward.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think we had a very good chat. I think this is a very good episode.
I think so too. I think that we got to know each other a little bit better. I think y'all got to know us a little bit better. And I think that this project, if for nothing else, was a great project to listen to for the way it made me think about things, both by watching the videos and listening to the songs.
Yeah, the album leaves you with a lot to think about. And I think that's what all good art is supposed to do, is leave that impact. It leaves you thinking, it leaves you questioning.
Absolutely. So if anybody thinks that they're going to sign up for like following this channel for music conversations, I just want you to know right now, the only music conversations you'll get are conversations about K-pop, because that is our wheelhouse. That's usually what we talk about.
And even then, it's not like we haven't ever done like a main video about K-pop. It's only like we just break off into a tangent talking about a boy's love, and we're like, speaking of this, what about this K-pop song?
Right. Like we are utter K-pop trash. But most of the time what we talk about is boys love. And if you are new to boys love, then I highly recommend that you stick around for our next discussion. We have a video that we recorded before this that might be the next thing that's published, but we also are planning on our next filming date to talk about a quintessential boys love, kind of the boys love that broke it wide open, SOTUS.
Yep, we're finally gonna do SOTUS for the good and the bad that comes with it. If you've seen SOTUS, if you know about SOTUS, you know why we're making these faces. If you haven't seen SOTUS, all I'll say is it's great, but buckle up.
Yes.
For this one.
SOTUS stands for the story of the love between us. That's what SOTUS stands for. What garbage?
Oh, how did that? We're missing some L's, some B's in this.
I'm telling you, like, it's like
the T stands for the love between us.
I'm telling you,
this is a bad anagram.
There's so much missing. But anyway, it is a Thai language boys love that you can find on YouTube. You can also find it on Netflix. We're talking about the first season. It stars Singto and that other guy other guy. Yeah, we'll talk about him a lot. But it's a boys love that I remember. It wasn't my very first boys love. My first boys love was Love by Chance. It was the second boys love I watched, and it was the first boys love that the two of us talked about that made me think that this was a genre I'm ready to see a lot of media for. And because of that, we ended up where we are now, because we started with Love by Chance, talking about that together, then Sodas, which I watched first and then you watched after, and then eventually getting into us watching Why Are You and deciding that we needed to talk about Why Are You on camera, and a channel was born.
No, remember we talked about the Studio Wabi Sabi ones.
Yeah, Love by Chance was the first Studio Wabi Sabi one, right?
No, before our first review was for Love Mechanics or something like that, or the one that came before it.
Yes, but isn't the Love Mechanics studio the same studio that did Love by Chance? Am I thinking wrong?
I don't think so. They did Until We Meet Again. That was their big one.
Wait a minute.
Maybe they did both, but the studio that did Until We Meet Again also did the Love Mechanic ones that we hate.
Yes,
We didn't even finish that. We never reviewed the third one, I don't think.
No, because there was no reason to.
Yeah.
But needless to say, Sodas was one of the foundational BLs that we watched. A lot of people, it's one of their foundational BLs. And I mean, if I could say anything good about what came out of us being present for Sodas during its still kind of peak of popularity, is we got Singto out of the deal. Yeah, and I love Singto. Until he does something to fucking disappoint me, because they always do.
Well, hopefully he doesn't. But I also want to say, I was supposed to mention this at the beginning of the video, but we just really got going. We did film a Light on Me episode. It is filmed. There are some roadblocks to it though, so that one will probably be up next. So just so you know, you'll get Montero today. You're watching it now. Then you'll get Light on Me, and then after that, we're gonna record the Sodas review. So you're gonna get Light on Me first.
Right. Okay. Well,
I don't have a manga of the week. I mean, Lil Nas X's Instagram is probably just Lil Nas X. I mean,
I was gonna say, Lil Nas X's Instagram is Lil Nas X. He has 11.1 million followers as of this morning. So very popular. He should be very easy to find. Find the one that's got 11 million followers. That's him. But I recommend highly following him on Twitter and TikTok. Yeah. I feel like you will enjoy him on Instagram, but the experience of following Lil Nas X is not complete until you follow him on those other two mediums as well, especially Twitter, because Twitter is kind of where he got his start anyway, and he's just really great on Twitter. He's fantastic on Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.